Welcome to another episode of UMBA Conversations. This is our video podcast series, and we're grateful that you would take this time to share with us, listen with us as we hear from not only previous moderators, but even some of our current auxiliary leaders and our current pastors as we sit down and hear about who they are and what they are doing in their churches and the efforts that they're making as we continue to unite churches and transform communities. I'm excited. I'm appreciative that you're here. If you're on YouTube, I would ask that you subscribe to our channel. If you're on Facebook, I would ask that you like this post, share this post, let others who love our beloved association know that we're bringing this series at this time. Again, thank you for watching, and let's go now into the sanctuary. Praise the Lord, UMBA family and friends. We're grateful to have you for this, another installment of our UMBA Conversations. This video podcast is a series that we have launched to help people learn more about the association and the work we're doing. We've had our former moderators come and share with us. And then also we brought in current leaders under my tenure. It's been a blending. So some of those persons like Reverend Jermaine Smith, who's always been a mainstay within the association. He continues to offer his gifts in service to our association. But then also too, we're bringing in some new people. One such person is here with me today. She's very near to my heart. Let me introduce to some and present to others the Reverend Felicia Buchanan.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
So grateful. You will probably, if you don't know her face, you probably know her name on paper because she's wearing several hats. She is our clerk. She is my executive assistant to the moderator. And she's also lifting and helping us really get organized with a health ministry. But before we get into all of that, I want us to just talk a little bit about who you are, Reverend Buchanan.
Mm-hmm.
Go.
Where do I begin? Well, being that we're talking about the United Missionary Baptist Association, I want to share how this is a full circle moment for me.
Really? Okay.
Because when I was in middle school, I was vice president of the BTU. For those of you who may not know, that's the Baptist Training Union.
Yes. Yes.
So as a young person, I was indoctrinated by serving in that capacity in the Baptist Training Union. And I was thinking the other day about one time I was asked to be a youth speaker at the Chautauqua. I don't even know if they still call them that, if they still have quarterly Chautauquas.
They don't.
But back in the day, there were quarterly Chautauquas, and I was reminiscing on being asked to be a youth speaker. And that was really kind of the first time I stood before an audience in a ministerial capacity. And I was probably a freshman in high school at that time, way back in the 70s, 80s, without sharing too much of my age. And but there was a comfort level there in doing those things. And now that I'm here, it's very much a full circle moment. Because after college, I began my ministerial assignment. It was not in the Baptist faith, actually. It was in the Pentecostal faith. But I found my way back.
Yeah.
I found my way back here.
And so you're from where?
I'm originally from Newark, New Jersey.
Okay.
And we migrated south. I said migrated because we went from Newark, New Jersey to a teeny tiny little town called Laurinburg, North Carolina.
Okay.
So it was a major migration and a major shift, cultural shift for me to go from New Jersey to North Carolina. And then I went to high school in Laurinburg, then went to college at UNC Chapel Hill, home of the Tar Heels.
All right.
And then moved to Charlotte after graduating college.
Yeah. You know, my wife went to UNC.
Chapel Hill?
Yes.
That's why I like her.
Yes.
Yes.
It wasn't until I got to Charlotte that people had to say the Chapel Hill part.
Yes.
Being here, but So she went there. My father-in-law went there, and
some people, I'm sure.
Mighty
people. Coming out of Chapel Hill.
Excellent. So you went to Chapel Hill, and then Did you pursue other studies?
I got my nursing degree at Chapel Hill.
Okay.
I got my bachelor's in nursing at Chapel Hill, and then moved to Charlotte to begin working at that time it was Charlotte Memorial Hospital. So most of my nursing career initially was in the hospital setting, mostly critical care, because I was pre-med cardiology before I switched to nursing. So I was able to do cardiology, critical care as a nurse. But my heart really opened up when I did home care. I was out in the middle of nowhere sometimes, out in the boondocks with just me, my brain, and whatever I could rustle up out of my trunk. But being in people's homes and caring for them in their homes and not in the hospital just had a different feel for me. And I remember the one thing, without taking too much time, when I was doing home care, there was one mother. I was only there to check her blood sugar and check her meds, but she would always call, baby, you stopping by the grocery store on your way to So I was not only her home care nurse, but every once in a while I have to stop by the grocery store and pick up something for mom on the way there. And the thing that impacted me most was one day she called, baby, you coming to see me today? And I wasn't scheduled to see her. I said, no, ma'am, I'm so sorry. I don't have you on my schedule till next week. And before I could get back to see her, she passed away.
She had passed. My goodness.
Yeah.
My goodness.
But being in that environment and doing care for people in their home is why I eventually went on and got my master's in public health, which is why I'm now working volunteering part-time as a faith community nurse, which is basically nursing within the faith community, which is why I'm really, really embedded in getting this health auxiliary for the association off the ground.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Tell me a little bit about your call into ministry.
My call into ministry is interesting because I've always been comfortable with public speaking. I've always been comfortable with sharing. My passion is teaching and not preaching. I was a Sunday school teacher when I was in middle school, high school, and when I got up to preach, I was always teaching. And it was funny because when I was at one particular church, everybody, you didn't preach if you didn't tune up. You didn't tune up, you didn't preach. So the organist, I would teach. I would be in my own zone teaching, but then I remember, I need to tune up. So I tried to tune up, and he would come up with me with an organ, and then I'd go back to teaching again. He would look at me like, oh gosh, and then I would go and I would teach it, and I would tune up, and he'd follow me. And the third time I tried to tune up, he just sat there and looked at me like, why am I going to follow you when you're going to go back to teaching? So I became comfortable with the fact that, we're not all, hoopers and pew hoppers when we preach. And I had to get comfortable in my gifting and in my assignment. And so teaching, preaching is kind of what I've been doing for the past 30 some odd years now.
Yeah. Often when I'm talking to preachers, and we often have conversation around, maybe you started preaching at this age or at this point, but what did it take for you to find your voice? Because I think all of us, we dabble, in terms of based on how we were socialized in church, and, who our pastors are, and, who we admire, who we follow. And, we probably, mimic some different things in people. But at some point you just kind of find your own voice, you become okay with it. And that's probably when you do your best ministry.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for a lot of us, it's trauma. For me, it was trauma. It was being able to minister out of my pain and trauma that allowed me to find my voice.
Wow.
Because I realized that the impact of what I was sharing was important, not so much the delivery of what I was sharing, but the essence and the nature of what I was sharing. That's what was important.
Right. It's powerful, and there's the famous Gardner Taylor line, I believe, is good meat makes its own gravy. But now that's something I feel myself. I mean, I was raised in holiness tradition, and I'm, Baptist to the bone, and there's I love the sound of the Black Baptist Church and those kind of things. But at the same time, saying something loudly doesn't make it true.
That's very true.
And so, I feel like we get to a point sometime in churches where it's like, because I think what we say, how we say it, are so wedded together, particularly in the Black experience, that, sometimes I think the downside to that is that, you think it's true just because it rhymes, or because, it was alliterated, or because you just were loud. But, being loud doesn't make it true, and being passionate does not make one an expert.
True.
So, it is what it is. But thank you again for having this conversation and being here with us. And I just wanted to let the people hear a little bit of your heart and who you are, because I could not do this work um, without you. And you have made the journey for me just so much more fun and meaningful, because coming into this association, like anything else, you don't quite know what you're getting. You don't quite know what's already in place and what the assignment's going to be, till you kind of get in that seat. And I know if as bustling as my church is these days, and as a father, I'm raising 3 kids that have to be in 3 different places every day. And with me not being, and not having, I have great church support and great friends, but I don't have like, grandparents and such who are here that I can kind of lean on, like you do with your grandbaby.
Yes.
So, life is demanding, but I do feel God has given me the gifts. And I said this when I was running. God has given me the gifts and the graces to do it. I think, in terms of, and it just works. And, you are one of those people who come to my mind when I think about that. So thank you for being all that you are to me in terms of my executive assistant as the moderator. You keep me on track, keep me focused. That's powerful. And that's important. And I'm grateful.
You mentioned the word gifts. That's what I'm constantly thinking about. When I see the Lord, I want to get to him empty. I want to stand before him empty and have used everything that he gave me. And I know that my administrative, I used to call myself type A. I still kind of call myself type A because of the way I like things to be done in excellence. If I feel like you can't do it in excellence, you shouldn't do it at all. Not perfect, but excellent. So I know that I have a gift of administration. I accept the fact that I have a gift of administration. And for me to be able to use that to support your vision is a blessing. And your vision of uniting churches and impacting communities resonates with me. And for me to be able to use my gifts of administration to support that vision, I am honored.
They're phenomenal. And I do want to add on a more personal note for you too. You're a Zeta.
Yes, Z.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think if people are going to know you, they need to know that about you. And you serve the sorority as well too.
And that was my preparation for this, because I served as in Greek terms, grammatias, in my chapter, which in regular terms is secretary.
Okay.
So serving as secretary for my sorority gave me the tools that I needed to be able to do this. And not only my local chapter, but I recently was able to serve as a delegate to the national convention, which was a whole other experience. But all of those things, parliamentary procedure and managing minutes and notes and communications and all of that at that level, I believe was great preparation for this role, for the assistant.
Exactly what you're doing. So I want to say a little bit more about executive assistant to the moderator, because I hope people understand that for me, I have folks in place for all things reader, and they're not my UMBA team. They're there to assist and support. But Reverend Buchanan is the person for me, all things association. So often I will CC her in emails, or, I'll have her to reach out to people on my behalf, just because that administrative savvy, you keep from me an ongoing, checklist, and you make notes for everything that we talk about and everything I'm envisioning, you will jot down and kind of help me keep that organized. So I'm grateful, because what that allows me to do, because, and not that life is that compartmentalized, but, I'm so grateful and thankful for the Reader Church. And I realized that, we're kind of punching above our weight in terms of the work we do and the size staff we have. So, I needed the Lord to send somebody like you, because, I don't want to add unfairly to the things that they already have going on. So you coming into this role, into my life in this season, has just truly been a blessing. And I can tell that my reader staff, they love it too. They don't even ask me about UMBA, because they just wait for the announcements to come out, and they know that if I need something, I'll ask. But I think they appreciate the fact that I'm engaged in this and I have the support I need, I have the help I need,
Mhm.
and I'm not, adding a lot to their responsibilities. Because if I could offer a word to anybody who is a pastor or leading, an organization of some sort, um, you need people around you. You need a
Absolutely.
team.
Mhm.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Makes the dream work.
And
And that's
so,
my tagline at work.
yeah,
Actually, under my signature
yeah,
at
is it?
work,
Yeah,
teamwork makes the dream
I
work.
believe it because while it is, I would like to think that I've grown and I've evolved as a leader and all that. And I realized, like, look, there's just 24 hours in a day. That's always been true.
Mhm.
And I've always given this everything I have. And, but what has changed for me or what has moved the needle for me um, is not so much me increasing my capacity as much as it is, me asset mapping and tapping the talent
Mhm.
that the Lord has placed around him.
And to that point, that's my vision for Health Auxiliary.
Okay.
When we launched the Health Auxiliary, I made it clear to those who have initially joined that I'm here in an interim capacity to get us going, but we know that there's probably talent out there
Yeah.
in the churches. There's probably someone out there who's capable of leading this auxiliary. And I see my role as launching and finding those resources. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
very important.
So when I came into this role as moderator, obviously there's constitution and bylaws. There's several auxiliaries that are established there within our constitution. Ushers come to mind, different auxiliaries that are just already established. And then there's an opportunity to create auxiliaries based on the desire and the vision of the moderator. And so one of the things that we have wanted to work on, and let's just take a step back and talk about good old Baptist churches.
Yes.
Instead, since we've been in existence seemingly, you've had the ushers, the urshers, who were also the nurses, which meant basically in their toolkit was a fan, an offering envelope, some orange juice, and a peppermint. There you go. So somebody should got low. Get the peppermint, get the orange juice, and we have called those ushers. We've called them nurses, and we've kind of conflated that. And then more recently in churches, now churches have ushers, but also you have greeters, and these are the people who are just going to greet. So the way we have kind of envisioned this is that we have the ushers and greeters auxiliary, but we wanted to create a separate health auxiliary to be actual healthcare professionals. So what our desire is and our goal is, when you come to particularly all of our major UMBA events where we will be anticipating hundreds, if not thousands, coming through throughout the course of a week, and somebody has some kind of medical emergency, or just doesn't feel well, there is an actual health person there with something in their toolkit beyond an envelope, orange juice,
And a
and a peppermint, yeah, and a fan. Got a fan on.
Yes.
And one time it was the cloth throwing when they fell out, but
Yes.
we don't fall out as much these days. Maybe that's the problem.
Well,
yeah, Terry, till you get that Holy Ghost power. Yeah.
preach that.
Yeah, I know, right? That's a whole other thing. Next conversation.
Yeah.
But so creating this health auxiliary is what we are after and hoping to do. And we believe the place to start is by networking. One of the things that is my leadership, I think about as it comes to UMBA, is that we have some amazing churches that are already doing good things. Yeah. So it's about networking, our churches, and then also too, the association coming alongside, work that's already been done. And so we hope to feature and highlight ministries within the association that we can all be better as a result of what we can glean and what we learn. I guess it's Jeremiah Wright who says it's all right to be a copycat, just copy the right cat. Yeah. So as we listen and learn from one another, we can go further. So as it relates to this health auxiliary, all right, so I've given that context. Take me to meeting one with where we are and what we're trying to do.
So in our initial meeting with the Health Auxiliary, we met with churches that have an established health ministry.
Okay.
So there are several churches out there who already have health ministries actively involved and engaged and doing some amazing things. They're doing health fairs and screenings. They're partnering with community resources to bring the breast cancer screening buses to their communities. Absolutely. There's so many things that are being done in so many of our churches. One church in particular, as you mentioned, developed an actual action plan for a medical emergency. So one church worked with their physician members to draft a plan, an action plan on how to get someone out of the pew to where they can receive proper care. And so we're, like you said, we're copying that cat.
Yeah.
And we're documenting that, and we're making sure all of the other churches who may or may not have an action plan can use that as a template to have one. It's very important to have a plan and not need it than need a plan and not have it.
Right.
So we got together the churches that came to our meetings to share what they're already doing and also to share what they would like to do. One of the key things we want to do is engage more of our community resources to tap into the health systems that are in our areas. One church has a partnership with the local medic and fire, so to develop those partnerships so that when we decide to do a community event, we already have a pool of people to help. The last person I spoke with, Reverend Jones, has this wonderful vision of making sure that our pastors and our people are healthy and well. And so not only are we looking to make sure that people on the outside receive the health care that they need, but making sure that on the inside, our leaders, our pastors, our ministry leaders, our auxiliary leaders have the tools necessary to maintain health. I have a tagline on my business card for my faith community nursing: health is wealth. And I truly believe that. If we're not healthy, we can't really minister to anyone else. So it starts at home. We're doing both. So it's a two-pronged attack where we're looking to ways that we can impact our communities, but also unite our churches to help each other to achieve what Reverend Jones called optimal wellness.
Yeah. So shout out to Reverend C. Anthony Jones Jr. So we have an executive board, for those who may or may not know, that's comprised of all of the UMBA pastors, all of the auxiliary presidents, and then there's a space for the moderator to make several appointments. And one such person I've tapped is Reverend C. Anthony Jones Jr., with an understanding of conversation. I notice what his passion is, and I want him to bring that to our association. Because we could all do better. And we got to be mindful of what kind of witness we're bearing and everything. So I'm excited, and I'm excited about us, doing some things together, and hopefully even, doing some walking together, some exercising together, some activities, outside of the sanctuary, that we will do together. That have the opportunity to strengthen our fellowship. Also too, as we make some significant strides to reach optimal health. I like that word.
I liked it too when I heard it.
I like that word because, I think health is so, nuanced, and there's a lot of factors that kind of come into play, from genetics to everything else. But we want to be the best version of ourselves. So I love that. So with the self-auxiliary, any more you can say about when we're meeting or anything like that?
So we've decided to meet every first Sunday afternoon. That seemed to be the time that was most convenient for everyone. And we want any church that's within earshot or visual of this to reach out if you would like to be a part of the auxiliary, because the more churches we can get involved in the work, what is it? Someone said, many hands make light work. So we really want to get everyone engaged, not only engaged in the work, but we want to highlight what you're doing. People may not know what you're doing in the church, but tell us, we're going to tell on you. We're going to make sure everyone knows what's going on and highlight and celebrate the work that's being done in those churches.
Absolutely. I love it. I appreciate you. And maybe perhaps if you don't have a health auxiliary in your church, maybe it's still your ushers, but you would like to get some guidance as to relate to how you can, do that. I'm sure you're happy to meet with them and have conversation.
Absolutely. That's one other thing that we talked about. If there were a couple of people who joined just to hear what we were about, and some had inactive health ministries, some were thinking about developing them. Absolutely. We will be glad to partner with them to establish the health ministry. There are certain things that you want to keep in mind when you're dealing with licensed and unlicensed people and
Yep.
what you do and don't do
Yep.
and all of that. And as a registered nurse, I can help guide that along with several of the members of our auxiliaries who are healthcare practitioners, and they're well aware of the legalities around what you can and can't do.
I don't want the deacon to have the defibrillator.
No,
But,
not until he's trained. Once he's trained, he's trained, he's good.
Yeah.
We're also looking into getting some grants. We had the last conversation. If you do not have an automatic external defibrillator, better known as an AED, in your church and would like to get one, we are working on localizing and finding some local grant funds that will enable and equip churches to be able to have that there.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
It's out there.
Now, how do people reach out to you?
Just send me an email. My email, first name Buchanan, last name RN@gmail.com. Shoot me an email. Let me know if you want to be engaged, if you want to get a health auxiliary started, if you're interested in the grant to get the equipment that you need in your church, any of the above. Just shoot me an email and I'll be glad to reach back out. Get you plugged in.
Wonderful. You're also the association clerk. Say a little bit about that, please.
What I love about the association clerk is being able to tap into my type A-ness and get those minutes out. So we meet to establish the agenda for our monthly meetings. And then after the monthly meetings and after the moderator sends out his report, then it's my responsibility to send out the minutes from that meeting. So everyone, not only that, but working with some of our ministers and to make sure we have a good list of all of our churches and our ministries. We have your email addresses, we have your phone numbers. We've been working on that first to make sure everyone gets the information. So we're maintaining a directory, number one, of all of our churches and our pastors and your addresses and phone numbers. We would like to, in that directory, keep track of when your pastoral anniversaries are, any special events, so that we can highlight and shout you out during those times. But those are the main things that I do, is maintaining that directory, making sure that communication is flowing, and making sure that the minutes of our meetings are captured and disseminated after the meetings.
It's super helpful because for me, again, my full-time job is pastoring this church. And so, which, and my real job is fathering Cadence, Kylan, and Carson. And trying to keep Kimberly happy.
Yes. And that's number one.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's closely tied to, keeping them three in order. So with all that going on, it's great because as I am kind of in and out, once I sit down to really, catch up on UMBA responsibilities and duties, the minutes and all those other things will help me to, kind of, all right, let's get back on track with XYZ. So
and one of the things that I love about my job is to be able to take some of that off your plate, know. And I'd like to encourage any of our members, if it's something that you want to reach out to him about, you can utilize me.
Absolutely.
So Kimberly and the kids can have dad and hubby. So you have a lot that you have to do, and any of that I can take off your plate, as far as managing, reaching this email, what's their email address, what's their phone number, who's that, those kinds of logistics, you can reach out to me for, and I'll take care of that.
Excellent. And you do an outstanding job, and we're already kind of seeing that the way you're coordinating things. So we're just thrilled about, again, you and this work, and it's been a blessing. I feel like when it comes to assuming some of these roles and responsibilities, it's always hardest when you're, gathering. I mean, admittedly, prior to, there's some churches I did not know existed prior to getting more involved with UMBA, and so we're learning. Churches learning who these pastors are. And again, we want to know, when is your pastoral anniversary? When are some of these things, so that we can celebrate with you? I've said in a previous conversation with one of these conversations with one of our leaders, of just how much I marvel at the gifts we have right here in our UMBA churches. I mean, plenty of pastors who have, who are national preachers, plenty of musicians who are national people, and a lot of talent coming right here out of Charlotte. So to the extent that we can network with one another and allow iron to sharpen iron,
Yes.
we can all just be better as a result.
Mhm.
Yep. So we appreciate you for your assistance to me.
Mhm.
As a moderator, we appreciate you for what you're doing as clerk. I mean, you just thought, you just born to do this stuff. So, I mean, when a person is in their gift, it's just like, wow, you know. And then also too, we're really excited about yourself auxiliary. So I look forward to having some more things that'll be coming down the pike, and perhaps even some more UMBA conversations as it relates to what exactly the health auxiliary is doing and how you can get your church involved.
Mhm.
You know, Reverend Smith said earlier, you know, that he thinks about the association as a resource.
Mhm.
And I love that because the connotation is, you know, we are reaching out to, you know, churches not to just extract from them, but
Mhm.
to, you know, add, you know,
Mhm.
to what you're doing. We want to be an organization whereby, you know, when you have needs in your church, you know, you can come to the association and get the
Mhm.
support and whatnot. So I'm thrilled about how I envision the Lord using us in that regard
Mhm.
as we go forward.
Absolutely.
Yep.
That's what it's all about.
Yep. So before I let you go, anything you want to say as it relates to where you see us going as an association?
I really do see major impact in our community, especially now, in this phase of life that we're in, especially going into this next, shall I say, 4 years, politically speaking. You know, I think that having solid foundational church structure in place to give people their footing when the world feels like it's going crazy.
Yeah.
And a lot of us are anticipating the world going crazy.
Yep.
And we want to be, I feel that we can be pivotal in that because we can be a grounding force. We can be something that people can lean on and lean into to give them stability when the world is spinning.
I love it. I love
So
it. I love
I'm
it.
hoping we can be that
Love it.
stabilizing force
I love it. I love it.
in people's lives.
One of my favorite Psalms is Psalm 47. God is for us refuge and strength, very present help in
Very
the time of a
present.
storm. Therefore, we shall not fear. Then it starts talking about, you know, though the earth change and all these other things change, and in a very poetic, you know, Hebrew poetic kind of manner, you know, talk about how much so much changes. But you know, but God remains the same in that regard.
And we're his hands and feet.
Yeah.
We can't be the implementers of those changes. We stay within the walls of our sanctuaries.
Yeah.
And, we have to be the change. We have to be out there and be visible.
Yeah. Bear witness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
People
Model
know.
that. You know, we can't be running around as frantic as those who don't know the Lord. You know, it's Gentiles who do that.
Yes.
Chase after these things, you know, but we're supposed to seek first the kingdom, heaven is righteousness, and he'll add these things to us. So
And I just mentioned it again, and I constantly say we're salt and light.
yeah.
People, we should be so salty that people come thirsty for the God that we serve.
Yeah.
And we should be light in the darkness.
Yeah.
You know, those are the things that we should be doing and need to be doing. We have a mandate from God to do.
Yeah. And this is what excites me about the association, because it's bigger than just one church.
It is.
You know, and I'm even anticipating and look forward to us just engaging more of the church community in Charlotte, period, even those who are not necessarily Baptists. I mean, so, you know, I forget who says it, but there's no limit to what can be done when you don't care who gets the credit.
Exactly.
And I think us understanding that, you know, this work is bigger than any one particular church, that we can just really come together. And I think, you know, just have a major impact. I really believe that.
I agree.
Yep.
I agree with that.
Yep. Well, let me thank you so much for your time. I know you're a busy person. This is, again, has been Reverend Felicia Buchanan. Reach out to her. She is UMBA Clerk at gmail.com. And so, you know, we're tied together very closely. And so feel free to reach out to her as we go forward as our clerk, assistant to me, and then also too with the health auxiliary that you're going to be hearing so much more about in the days ahead. But again, thank you for watching and sharing with us in this UMBA conversation. We're coming back with more episodes, more leaders and partners from our association to let you know about the great things that are going on in the life of UMBA. But in the meantime, in between time, we bless God for you, and we just pray and hope that God will continue to use us and use your church that we might advance this work as we are uniting churches, transforming communities. God bless you, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Yes.